Not that he was completely unconscious during the whole period of his illness. It was rather a state of fever, with delirium and semi-wakefulness. He remembered much of it afterwards. Now it seemed to him that a large number of people had gathered round him with the intention of seizing him and carrying him off somewhere, arguing and quarrelling fiercely over him. And now he was suddenly alone in the room. Everyone had gone away in fear of him. And only now and then would they open the door ever so slightly in order to look at him. They would threaten him, make arrangements about something between themselves, laugh at him and tease him. He remembered Nastasia being frequently beside him. He could also discern another person whom he thought seemed very familiar, but who this was he could not for the life of him determine, and this made him miserable, so that he even cried. Sometimes he would fancy that he had been lying there for a month, at other times that it was still the same day. As far as that was concerned, however, that he had forgotten about altogether, though every minute or so he had remembered that he had forgotten about something it was out of the question for him to forget about, and as it came back to him, he'd be racked with torment and anguish, groaning as he sank into rabid fury or fearful, unbearable terror. Then he had endeavoured to get up, to flee, but someone always stopped him by force, and he had fallen back helpless, unconscious. At last he came back to himself completely. And this happened in the morning at 10 o'clock. At that hour, on clear days, the sun sent a long band of light over the right-hand wall of his room, illuminating the corner beside the door. By his bed stood Nastasia and another person, who was examining him very curiously and was totally unfamiliar to him. This was a young lad in a kaftan, with a beard. He was probably a money messenger by the look of him. Through the half-opened door peeped the landlady. Raskolnikov raised himself on one elbow. "Who is this, Nastasia?" he asked, pointing to the lad. "Would you look at him? Why, he's woken up," she said. "So the gentleman has," the money messenger replied. Realizing that this was so, the landlady ceased her observation through the doorway, closed the door, and disappeared from view. She was invariably shy, and found conversations and arguments irksome. She was about 40, was plump and oily, black-eyebrowed and black-haired, with the good nature that goes along with plumpness and laziness. Actually, she was quite a comely woman, more bashful than she needed to be. Who are you?" he went on, continuing his inquiry and addressing the money messenger himself. But at that moment the door opened again, and stooping slightly because of his height, Razumikin came in. "It's a regular ship's cabin," he exclaimed as he entered. "I always bang my head, and they call these lodgings. So you've woken up, have you, brother? I heard it just now from Pashenka." "He only woke up a second ago," said Nastasia. "That's right, only a second ago," the money messenger echoed with a smile. "And who might you be, sir?" Razumikin asked, suddenly turning to him. "I'd like to make it clear to you that my name's Vrasunikim, not Razumikin, as everyone calls me, but Vrazumikin, a student and gentleman's son, and he's my chum. Well, sir, how are you?" I'm the money messenger in our office. I've been sent from the merchant Shelopayev, sir, and I'm here on business." "Will you be so good as to sit down on this chair, please?" Razumikin sat down on another at the opposite side of the table. "It's just as well you've woken up, brother," he went on, addressing Raskolnikov. "You've hardly had a bite to eat or a drop to drink for 4 days. Really, we've been giving you tea in spoonfuls. Twice I brought Zosimov to see you. Do you remember Zosimov? He examined you carefully and immediately said it was all a lot of nonsense. You'd had some kind of stroke in your head or something. Some nervous, rubbish, poor diet, he said. Not enough beer and horseradish. That was why you had got ill, but it was nothing. It would pass. Good old Zosimov. He set about tending you nobly. Well, sir, I mustn't keep you any longer," he said, turning to the money messenger again. "Please be so good as to tell us what you want. I may as well let you know, Roger, that this is the second time someone's come from that office of theirs. Only last time it wasn't this fellow, but another. And he and I had a bit of a talking to. Who was that fellow who came here before you? I think that sounds as though it must have been the day before yesterday, sir. It must have been Alexei Semyonovich. He works in our office too, sir. Would you say he was a bit more intelligent than you? What's your opinion? Yes, sir, he's sort of a bit more solid, sir. Spot on. Well, sir, continue. Well, you see, sir, there's a money order come to our office for you through Afanasy Ivanovich Vakrushin, of whom you've heard a few times before, I believe, at the request of your mother, sir. The money messenger went on, addressing Raskolnikov directly. In the event of your being in possession of your faculties, sir, I am to entrust 35 roubles to you, sir, as Semyon Semyonovich has received instructions to that effect from Afanasy Ivanovich. In the same manner as on the previous occasion at your mother's request. Would you be knowing Afanasy Ivanovich, sir? Yes, I remember. Someone called Vakrushin, Raskolnikov said meditatively. Do you hear that? He knows the merchant Vakrushin, Razumikin exclaimed. How could he possibly not be in possession of his faculties? As a matter of fact, I'm beginning to notice now that you're an intelligent chap too. I say, sir, it's nice to do business with a man who can talk with some wit. It's the same Vakrushin, sir, Afanasy Ivanovich Vakrushin, and at the request of your mother, who's already sent some money through him in the same manner, he's agreed to do it again on this occasion, sir, and a day or two ago sent instructions from his domicile that you were to be paid 35 roubles in expectation of better days to come, sir. Better days to come! That's your best crack yet. That the one about your mother wasn't bad either. Well, tell me, in your opinion, is he or isn't he in full possession of his faculties, eh? It's all right with me, sir. Only he ought to sign for it, sir. He'll scratch his name, never fear. What's the form? Do you have a book or something? Yes, sir, here it is, sir. Give it here. Now, Roger, sit up. I'll support you. Just scribble Raskolnikov for him. Take the pen, brother, for money is sweeter than sugar to us right now. I don't want it, Raskolnikov said, pushing the pen away. What on earth are you talking about? I won't sign. The devil, man, you've got to. I don't want the money. So it's, I don't want the money, is it? Well, brother, you're singing the wrong tune there. I have my ears as a witness. Please, don't worry. He's off on his travels again. It happens to him, even when he's wide awake. You're a sensible chap, and we'll provide him with a bit of guidance. That's to say, we'll simply guide his hand. And he'll sign. Well, let's get on with it. Oh, I think perhaps I'll look in some other time. No, there's no reason for you to put yourself out. You're a sensible chap. Now, Roger, don't delay our visitor any longer. He's waiting, you see. And he earnestly prepared to guide Raskolnikov's hand. Leave me. I'll do it. I'll do it myself, Raskolnikov said. He took the pen and signed his name in the book. The money messenger laid out the cash and beat a retreat. Bravo! Now, brother, are you hungry? Yes, Raskolnikov replied. Have you any soup? Some of yesterday's left, Nastasia, who'd been standing there all this time, replied. Rice flour and potato? That's right. I know it off by heart. Bring on your soup, and let's have some tea while you're about it. All right, then. Raskolnikov was looking at everything with deep amazement and a vacant, senseless terror. He decided to say nothing and wait for what might happen next. I don't appear to be delirious, he thought. This must all be real. 2 minutes later, Nastasia returned with the soup and announced that the tea would be along in a moment. To accompany the soup, 2 spoons and 2 plates put in an appearance, together with a complete dinner set, a salt cellar, a pepper pot, mustard for the beef, and so on, the like of which had not been seen for a long time. There was even a clean tablecloth. It might not be a bad idea, Nastasiukasha, if Praskovia Pavlovna were to send us a couple of bottles of beer. We could do with a drop of something. Quick on your toes, aren't you? Nastasia muttered, and went off to fulfil his command. Raskolnikov continued to stare at everything wildly and with strained attention. In the meantime, Razumikin moved over and sat beside him on the sofa, and with the clumsiness of a bear, placed his left arm around his head, even though Raskolnikov could quite easily have raised himself, and with his right hand brought a spoonful of soup to his mouth, having first blown on it as a precaution, so that he should not burn his tongue. The soup, however, was only barely warm. Raskolnikov greedily gulped down one spoonful, then another, but then, having given him a few spoonfuls, Razumikin suddenly stopped, and announced that before letting him have any more, he would have to consult Zosimov. Nastasia came in with 2 bottles of beer. "What about that tea? Do you want it?" "Yes." "Run and get the tea, Nastasia. There's a good girl. I think we may safely indulge in tea without consulting the medical faculty. We now have beer, too." He moved back to his own chair, drew the soup and the beef towards him, and began to eat with such appetite that one might have thought that he had had nothing to eat for 3 days. "You know, brother Rodya, I eat like this at your place every day now," he muttered, as clearly as he was able with his mouth stuffed full of beef. "That wonderful landlady of yours, Pashenka, sees to everything. She makes these feasts in my honour and really puts her heart into them. Of course, it's not at my insistence, but then I don't exactly protest either. And now here's Nastasia with the tea. Quick, wasn't she? Nastenka, would you like some beer?" "Oh, you and your mischief." "Some tea, then?" "Yeah, I'd quite like some." "Go on, then, pour it out. Wait, I'll do it. Sit down at the table." He at once took over from her, poured 1 cup, then another, abandoned his lunch, and sat down on the sofa again. As before, he put his left arm around the patient's head, lifted him up, and began to spoon tea into him with a teaspoon, again blowing on it constantly with a special zeal, as though this process of sufflation contained within it the element that was central and crucial to Raskolnikov's recovery. Raskolnikov said nothing, and offered no resistance, in spite of the fact that he felt he had quite enough strength to raise himself and sit on the sofa without anyone's help. Not only did he feel he could keep sufficient control of his hands in order to hold a spoon or a cup, he could even, he felt, have walked. But the workings of some strange, almost animal cunning suddenly prompted him to conceal his strength until the right moment, to lie low, pretend to be not yet quite conscious, if need be, all the while listening and pricking up his ears to find out what was going on. He was, however, unable to master his revulsion. Having gulped down about a dozen spoonfuls of tea, he suddenly jerked his head free, pushed the teaspoon away fretfully, and collapsed, once again, on the pillows. There were actually proper pillows under his head now, feather ones with clean slips, and this too he observed and took into account. "We must get Pashenka to send us up some raspberry jam today, so we can make him a drink," said Razumikin, sitting down on his own chair, and once again resuming work on the soup and the beer. "And where's she going to get raspberries?" Nastasia asked, holding her saucer on 5 splayed fingers and sucking her tea through the sugar, peasant fashion. "Oh, she can buy them at the corner shop, my dear. You see, Roger, a whole mass of events has taken place while you've been away on your travels. When you ran away from me in that knavish way of yours, without even telling me where your lodgings were, I was suddenly seized by such a temper that I decided to track you down and punish you. I set to work that very same day. I walked and walked, asked questions here, asked questions there. I'd forgotten about this place where you are now. Actually, it never occurred to me because I didn't know you were here. Well, and as for your old lodgings, all I could remember was that they were at 5 Corners in Karlamov's tenements. I searched and searched for those Karlamov tenements, and then, of course, it turned out it wasn't the Karlamov tenements at all, but the Buch ones. You know, the way one gets the names of things mixed up. I began to lose my temper. I lost my temper, and the next day I thought, here goes, and I went to the address bureau, and would you believe it? Within 2 minutes they'd found you for me. You're on their books. On their books? Of course. Yeah, while I was there was someone looking for a General Kobelev. They couldn't find him to save themselves. Well, old chap, it's rather a long story, but as soon as I popped up here, I immediately got acquainted with all your doings. All of them, brother, all of them. I know about the lot. I made the acquaintance of Nikodim Fomich, had Ilya Petrovich pointed out to me, had the yard keeper and Mr. Zyamyatov met Alexandra Grigorievich, met the clerk at the local police bureau, and finally met Pashenka. That crowned everything. And now she knows too. He sugared her up, Nastasia murmured, smiling a mischievous, ironic smile. And you ought to put yours down in the cup where it belongs, Nastasia Nikiforovna. Oh, you rotten pig, Nastasia exclaimed suddenly, burst out laughing. Anyway, here, my name's Petrova, not Nikiforovna, she added suddenly, when she had stopped. I shall take it to heart, madam. Well now, brother, to cut a long story short, at first I wanted to wire the whole place up with electric current in order to get rid of all the prejudices there are around here in one go. But Pashenka won the day, you know, brother. I had no idea she was such a dish, eh? What do you think? Raskolnikov said nothing, though never for one moment had he taken his troubled gaze off his friend, and was now continuing to stare intently at him. And you might even say, Razumikin went on, not in the slightest put out by the silence, and as if in confirmation of some reply he had received, you might even say that she's got all it takes, and in all the right places too. You dirty beast, Nastasia screamed again, plainly finding this conversation a source of the most unutterable delight. You see, brother, what you did wrong was not to get stuck in there right at the beginning. She needed to be handled in a different sort of way. I mean, she really is the most surprising character. Well, more about her character later. Only, how could you have let things get to such a pass that she didn't even dare to send your dinner up to you? And then that promissory note? Had you taken leave of your senses to go signing a thing like that? And then what about this business of you promising to marry her daughter, when Natalia Regorovna was still alive? That is, I know everything. However, I can see that I've touched a delicate chord, and that I'm an ass. You must forgive me. But, while we're on the subject of stupidity, what do you think? I mean, Praskovya Pavlovna is not at all as stupid as one might suppose at first glance. Is she, eh? No, Raskolnikov said, through his teeth, looking to one side, but realizing that it would be more to his advantage to pursue the conversation. Don't you think so? Razumikin exclaimed, evidently delighted to have received a reply. But then, she's not exactly clever either, is she, eh? A truly, truly surprising character. You know, brother, I'm sometimes at my wit's end, to tell you the truth. She must be all of 40. She says she's 36, and she has every right to do so. Actually, to be quite honest, I approach her more on an intellectual level, a purely metaphysical one. We've got a sort of secret code between us that's worse than algebra. I don't understand any of it, but that's all a lot of nonsense. The thing is that when she saw you had stopped being a student, and that you had lost your private teaching, and your decent suit of clothes, and that after her daughter's death there was no reason for her to treat you as one of her family any more, she suddenly got frightened. And since you were hiding yourself away in your room, and had dropped your previous friendly relations with her, she decided to kick you out. She'd been cherishing that plan for a long time, but was loath to say goodbye to the promissory note. What's more, you'd been telling her that your mother would pay it. I was a bastard to say that. My mother's practically begging on the streets. I lied to her so she'd let me stay in my lodgings and provide me with meals, Raskolnikov said distinctly. Yes, and that was a wise thing to do. Only the trouble was that who should turn up just then but Mr. Chebarov, court councillor and man of legal business. If he hadn't been there, Pashenka would never have thought of any of it. She's far too shy. Well, men of business aren't shy. And of course the first thing he asked her was, question, was there any hope of payment on the promissory note? Answer, yes, because there was a mother who actually sent her Rudenka money out of her 12-ruble pension, even though it meant she'd have to go without food, and a sister who would sell herself into bondage for her brother's sake. And it was on this that he based his course of action. Well, what are you moving around like that for? I know all your precious secrets now. It wasn't in vain that you indulged in those confidences with Pashenka when you were still part of her family, and here I speak as a friend. But that's how it is, A man of honesty and sensitivity indulges in confidences, while a man of business listens, but goes on licking up the cream. So the next thing she did was to give the said promissory note to the said Chebarov in lieu of payment, and he had no qualms about formally demanding the amortization of the debt. When I found out about all this, I felt like giving him a dose of electric current too, to clean out his conscience. But at that time, Pashenka and I were getting along swimmingly, and I told her to stop the whole thing right at the source, as it were, vouching to see to it that you paid up. I vouched for you, brother. Do you hear that? We summoned Chebarov, stuck 10 rubles under his nose, and got the document back. I now have the honour of presenting it to you. They'll believe what you tell them now. Here, take it. I've even torn it slightly in the way one is supposed to. Razumikin spread the acknowledgment of debt out on the table. Raskolnikov glanced at it, and without saying a word, turned his face to the wall. Razumikin fairly winced. "I can see, brother," he said after a while, "that I've made a fool of myself again. I thought I'd cheer you up and take your mind off things with a bit of chatter, but I think I merely annoyed you." "Were you the person I didn't recognize when I was delirious?" Raskolnikov asked, having also remained silent for a while and without turning his head round. "That's right, and a fair old frenzy you got into about it too, especially when I brought Zamyotov with me one day." "Zamyotov? The police clerk? Why?" Raskolnikov quickly turned round and stared at Razumikin. "What the devil? Why are you upset? He wanted to make your acquaintance. It was his own idea, because he and I had been talking so much about you. How would I know so much about you unless I'd been talking to him? He's a splendid fellow, brother. A most wonderful chap, in his own way, naturally. We're buddies now. We see each other practically every day. I mean, I've even moved into this bit of town now. Didn't you know? I've only just moved. He and I have been to Lavisa's place a couple of times. Do you remember Lavisa? Lavisa Ivanovna?" Did I rave a lot?" "You bet! You weren't your own man." "What did I rave about?" "Heavens, man, what did you rave about? People rave about all sorts of things. Well, brother, we mustn't waste time. There's business to see to." He rose from his chair and grabbed hold of his cap. "What did I rave about?" "Oh, how you keep on. Is it some secret you're afraid of having given away? Don't worry. You said nothing about any countesses. But you said a great deal about a bulldog, some earrings and chains or other, Krestovsky Island, some yard-keeper fellow, Nikodim Fomitch and Ilya Petrovitch, his assistant. Oh yes, and you were particularly interested in one of your own socks. You kept moaning, 'Give it to me,' over and over again. Zamyotov himself went around looking for your socks with his very own hands, bathed in scent and bedizened with rings, put the whole rubbishy lot into your grasp. Only then did you calm down, and you held on to that rubbish for days on end. It was impossible to get it away from you. It must be somewhere under your quilt even now. And then you asked for the ends of your trousers, and my, how tearful you were about it. We tried to find out what sort of ends they were, but we couldn't make it out. It was a mystery. Well, now I really must be off. Look, here are your 35 rubles. I'll take 10 of them, and in a couple of hours' time I'll be back here and show you what use I've made of them. At the same time, I'll let Zosimov know how you are, though he really ought to have been here long ago. It's getting on for 12 o'clock. And Nastenka, while I'm gone, please look in often and find out if he wants anything to drink or whatever. As for Pashenka, I'll tell her what she needs to know right now. Goodbye." "Calling her Pashenka like that. Listen to old crafty lips," Nastasia said as he went out. And then she opened the door and began to eavesdrop, but lost patience and ran downstairs. She was extremely interested to know what Razumikin was talking about down there with the landlady. Indeed, it was, in general, obvious that she was quite taken with him. No sooner had the door closed behind her than the patient threw off his quilt, leapt up from the bed like a man half crazy. With burning, convulsive impatience, he waited for them to go so he could begin his task. But what was it? What was the task? Now, as though by design, It seemed to have gone clean out of his head. Oh, Lord, just tell me one thing. Do they know about it all? Or haven't they found out yet? Or is it that they've simply been pretending, playing cat and mouse with me while I was still laid up in bed, and will suddenly come in and tell me that they've long known everything and have merely been... Then what am I to do now? I've gone and forgotten. That would have to happen. One moment it was in my head, and the next it was out of it. He stood in the centre of the room and looked around him in agonised bewilderment. He went over to the door, opened it, listened, but that was not it. Suddenly, as though it had come back to him, he rushed to the corner where the hole in the wallpaper was, began to examine everything, put his hand through the hole, felt about. That was not it either. He went to the stove, opened it, and began to feel around in the ashes. The fragments of his trouser ends and the shreds of his torn-out pocket lining were scattered about where he'd strewn them earlier, and that meant that no one had seen them. At that point he remembered the sock that Razumikin had told him about just then. True enough, there it was, lying on the sofa under the quilt. But it was now so dirty and unnoticeable that Zamyatov could not possibly have spotted it. That's it! Zamyatov, the bureau. But why do they want me at the bureau? What's that summons? Wait a minute, I'm getting mixed up. That was back then. And back then I examined my sock too. But now I've been ill. But why did Zamyatov come to see me? Why did Razumikin bring him here? He muttered helplessly, sitting down on the sofa again. What's all this? Is it still my delirium playing up, or is it real? It seems to be real. Yes, I remember. I must flee. I must take to my heels right now. I have absolutely no choice, but where am I to run to? And where are my clothes? My boots aren't here. They've cleared them away, hidden them. It's all too clear. But here's my coat. They must have missed it. And here's my money on the table, thank God. Here's the note too. I'll take the money and leave, and I'll rent new lodgings. They'll never find me. Yes, but what about the address bureau? They'll find me. Razumikin will. I'd better flee entirely, go far away. To America, and let them go hang. I'll take the note too. It'll come in handy over there. What else should I take? They think I'm ill. They don't even know I can walk. They don't even know I can. All I need to do is get down to the bottom of these stairs. But what if they put people on watch down there? Policemen. What's this? Tea? Oh, there's some beer left too, half a bottleful, and it's cold. He seized hold of the bottle in which there was enough beer left to fill a whole tumbler, and drank it down with pleasure in one draught, as though he were extinguishing a fire within himself. But hardly had a moment gone by than the beer went to his head, and along his spine passed a gentle and even welcome shiver. He lay down and pulled the quilt over him. His thoughts, which were already morbid and incoherent as it was, began increasingly to merge with one another, and before long slumber, light and welcome, held him in its grasp. With pleasure he sought a place for his head on the pillow, wrapped himself more tightly in the soft quilt which now lay on top of him in place of the tattered overcoat he had been used to before, uttered a quiet sigh, and fell into a deep, sound, restorative sleep. What woke him up was the sound of someone coming up to his room. Opening his eyes, he saw Razumikin, who had opened the door wide and was standing in the threshold, wondering whether to go in or not. Raskolnikov quickly sat up on the sofa and looked at him as though making an effort to remember something. "Ah, you're awake! Well, here I am. Nastasia, bring the bundle up here." Razumikin shouted down the staircase. "In a second or two, I'll show you how I spent the money." "What time is it?" asked Raskolnikov, looking around him uneasily. "Why, you've slept in grand style, brother. It's evening outside. It must be about 6 o'clock. You've been asleep for about 6 hours and a bit." "Good Lord, what's wrong with me?" "What's wrong with you? It'll have done you good. Where's the hurry? Off to a rendezvous or something? Now, all our time's our own. I've already been waiting for you about 3 hours. I looked in a couple of times, but you were asleep. I went to call on Zosimov twice. Nothing doing, he wasn't in. But don't worry, he'll be along. I also took a bit of time off to see my own paltry affairs. You see, I moved completely together with my uncle. I've got an uncle living with me now, you see. But to hell with that, to our task. Give me the bundle over here, Nastenka. Now, we'll just... how are you feeling, brother? I'm all right. I'm not ill, Razumikin. Have you been here long? I told you I've been waiting for 3 hours. No, but before that. What do you mean, before? How long is it since you began these visits to the house? But I mean, I told you all this morning. Have you forgotten? Raskolnikov began to reflect. The events of that morning flitted before him as in a dream. He was unable to recall them single-handed, and looked questioningly at Razumikin. Razumikin said. You have forgotten. Why, even just this morning I thought you were yet in your... Yet. Now your sleep has made you recover. You really do look a lot better. Good for you, lad. Now, to business. You'll remember it all in a jiffy. Look what I've here, my dear fellow. He began to undo the bundle, on which he had obviously lavished a good deal of care. Believe me, brother, this is something that lies particularly close to my heart, for we must make a proper human being of you. Let's get on with it. We'll start at the top. You see this little casquette? He began, producing from the bundle a fairly decent, but at the same time very ordinary and cheap quality peaked cap. Would you like to try it on? Later, afterwards, Raskolnikov said, brushing it aside peevishly. No, brother Rudyard, don't be quarrelsome. Afterwards, it'll be too late. And besides, I shan't be able to get a wink of sleep all night because I don't know your size. I bought it on a guess. Perfect, he exclaimed triumphantly, having tried it on Raskolnikov's head. It fits perfectly. What a man wears on his head, brother, is the most important item of his costume. It's a kind of introduction. In a way, every time my friend Tolstyakov goes into one of those public places, he sees that all the other gents standing there are wearing caps and hats, and he finds himself compelled to remove his own humble lid. Everyone thinks he does it because he has servile feelings, but it's really because he's ashamed of that bird's nest of his. He's a man with a sense of shame. Well now, Miss Nastenka, here are 2 items of headdress for you. This grand old Palmerston, he produced from the corner of Raskolnikov's mangled round hat, which for some unknown reason he'd given the name Palmerston. Or this intricate little knick-knack. What's your guess, Roger? How much do you think I paid for it? How about you, Nastya Yushka? He said, turning to her, observing that Raskolnikov was not going to say anything. I should think it cost you 20 kopecks, Nastasia replied. 20 kopecks, you brainless girl, he exclaimed, taking offence. Why, one couldn't even buy you for 20 kopecks these days. It cost 80. And it was only her because it's been worn. But then it carries a guarantee. If you wear it out this year, they'll give you another next year for nothing. So they will. Now, let's proceed to the United American States, as they used to be called, in the gymnasium I attended. I must warn you that I'm rather proud of these breeches. And in front of Raskolnikov, he stretched out a pair of grey trousers made of a light summer woolen material. They bear not a hole nor a stain, and they're not bad at all, even though they are a bit worn. And there's a waistcoat to go with them, same colour as fashion requires. Actually, the fact that the stuff's been worn is a positive advantage. It's softer, more comfortable. You see, Roger, it's my opinion that in order for a man to make his way in the world, it's sufficient for him always to observe the seasons. If one doesn't demand asparagus in January, one may keep a few roubles in one's purse, and the same thing applies to the purchase before you now. At present it is summer, so I've made a summer purchase, because for autumn you'll need things made of warmer material, and you'll have to throw these ones away. All the more so, since by that time this stuff would have fallen to bits. It's not, if not because of its increased splendour, then because of certain inner defects. Well, give me your guess. How much do you suppose? 2 roubles and 25 kopecks? And remember, again, there's the same guarantee. If you wear these out this year, you may take some others next year for nothing. These are the only terms of trade at Fedyarev's shop. You pay your money once and you get goods to last all your life, because otherwise you'd never go near the place again. Well, now, let's proceed to the boots. What do you think? I mean, it's easy to see they've been worn. yet they'll answer perfectly for a month or two, as they're foreign craftsmanship and foreign manufacture. The Secretary of the British Embassy sold them at the flea market last week. He'd only been wearing them for 6 days, but he needed the money badly. The price was 1 rouble 50 kopecks. All right? But they may not fit, Nastasia observed. Not fit? What do you think this is? And from his pocket he hauled one of Raskolnikov's old stiffened boots, caked all over with dried mud and full of holes. I took this monster along in reserve, and by measuring it they were able to determine its size. The whole business was conducted in a most cordial fashion. And as for his linen, I've had a word with the landlady. Here, to start with, are 3 shirts, coarse cloth ones, but fashionably styled on the outside. Well, so 80 kopecks for the cap, 2 roubles 25 for the rest of the clothes. That makes 3 roubles and 5 kopecks, a rouble 50 for the boots, because they're very nice ones. So that comes to 4.55, and 5 roubles inclusive for the linen. They were bought wholesale, so the whole lot comes to 9 roubles and 55 kopecks exactly. There's 45 kopecks change in copper 5s. Here, please take them. And so, Rodia, now your wardrobe is completely renewed, as in my opinion your coat is not merely still serviceable, but actually possesses an air of a certain nobility. That's what one gets when one orders one's clothes from Sharma's. As for socks and the rest, I'll leave that up to you. We've 25 roubles left, and you don't need to worry about Pashenka and paying the rent. I told you, I've got the most unlimited credit with her. And now, brother, you must please let me change your linen for you, or else your germs will probably just go on lingering in your shirt. Stop it. I don't want all of this, Raskolnikov protested, warding him off, having listened with revulsion to Razumikin's strained efforts at humour in his account of how he'd bought the clothes. It's no good making a fuss, brother. I haven't worn my boot leather out for nothing, Razumikin insisted. Natsiayushka, don't be so embarrassed. Come and help me. That's right. And in spite of Raskolnikov's protests, he nonetheless managed to change his linen. Raskolnikov fell back on the pillows, and for a couple of minutes did not say a word. They're not going to leave me alone for a long time yet, he thought. Out of whose money did you buy all this? He asked, at last, looking at the wall. Whose money? What questions you do ask? Why, your own, of course. That money messenger was here this morning, from Varushkin's. Your mother sent it, or have you forgotten? I remember now, said Raskolnikov, after a long and morose bout of reflection. Frowning, Razumikin kept glancing at him uneasily. The door opened, and there entered a tall, thick-set man, whom Raskolnikov also thought looked somewhat familiar. Zosimov at last! Razumikin exclaimed in relief.